What we had before, though, was a mixed match of policies at different schools. You could walk into one classroom, a teacher may be strict about it, another classroom, it may not be strict about it. So what we've said is board-wide, we're no longer policing clothing, including hats, although we do encourage students to take their hats off during the anthem.
David Menzies for the Rebel.media. I'm here outside the headquarters of the Toronto District School Board, which recently made news with an announcement of a new dress code. Now, first and foremost, I don't know if this falls into the department of bad timing, given that today, June 6th, is the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and yet the Toronto District School Board in the new dress code revisions is going to be allowing students to leave their hats and caps on during the playing of O Canada. And I'm very happy to have with me a spokesman with the Toronto District School Board, Mr. Ryan Bird. And Ryan, a lot of people are going to automatically interpret this as being downright disrespectful to the playing of the anthem. What was behind this decision?
The overall decision when it comes to dress code is that is a decision that students and parents can make, what you wear to school in general, the larger picture. I think what we heard overwhelmingly from students is these restrictions are not good, like whether it be focused on girls or boys. So there was a lot of consultation on this. The focus was we're no longer going to police what students wear. That's up to them and their parents. Then when it comes specifically to hats, I think what we have said is we encourage students to take their hats off during the anthem. I would encourage my kids to do it, and so I do get that. But I think we're not going to make exceptions when it comes to dress code. We either police the clothing of students or we don't police the clothing of students, and we're not policing it anymore, and that includes hats.
Well, with all due respect, though, Ryan, I think there might be an exception for the playing of the national anthem in that this is a way of showing respect. The idea of removing your cap, you are showing that there is something bigger than you, bigger than the individual. Namely, in this case, the thousands of Canadians who gave their lives for the liberty that we now enjoy. And I just think that, especially if we were to get a veteran's perspective on this, somebody who's a proud Canadian, I can't see this sitting well with them.
And I realize that. I don't think it will sit well with some people. But it's less about respect for the anthem, although we do encourage you to take the hats off, and more about, again, not policing any article of clothing that students are wearing. That's up to students and parents. We do encourage it, though. I would say that people should take their hats off for the anthem. What we had before, though, was a mixed match of policies at different schools. You could walk into one classroom, a teacher may be strict about it, another classroom, it may not be strict about it. So what we've said is board-wide, we're no longer policing clothing, including hats, although we do encourage students to take their hats off during the anthem, instead of having some sort of argument in the classroom with someone that repeatedly does not want to take it off, send them down to the office, send them down in the hall, disrupting the class. We've taken the wind out of that and said, look, we're not policing it anymore. We would encourage you to do it, but you don't have to anymore. We're not going to sit there and say this is okay, that is not okay, because what we had before was 582 different dress codes right across the system. Someone could have worn spaghetti straps at one school and been fine. Someone could have worn spaghetti straps at another school and been disciplined for it. So there is no consistency whatsoever. So what we're saying is we're going to make the decision about clothing up to students and their parents. It's none of our business. As long as you meet the core, kind of the base level that we lay out on our policy, we're not going to police it anymore.
And the base level, as you just said, Ryan, nipples, groin, and buttocks. So in theory, and correct me if I'm wrong, I guess a female student could come to class in a string bikini, and that would be okay.
We've actually stated right in it that swimsuits are not appropriate. Now, if you're in a pool, swimsuits are okay, but swimsuits are not appropriate in our classroom.
How about lingerie then?
That is also not allowed. We do say things like that. We do state that lingerie swimsuits, those are not appropriate to just wear those to school.
So in a way, there is sort of a bit of a dress code then, right?
Yeah, there's a base level that we obviously require, but we're not getting into the measuring the length of a strap on someone's top or anything like that. We're no longer policing it. That's a decision that the student makes and their parents.
And tell me, I noticed there was some provision, for example, when it came to clothing such as T-shirts with a logo or a slogan on it, that it can't be offensive. And of course, we live in a day and age when there's all kinds of attacks on free speech. There's all kinds of definitions about what is and is not offensive, Ryan. I'm just wondering, how big the net would be. Some might argue, we see this south of the border, a kid wears a MAGA hat to school and that's under the ban, or he gets penalized for that. Would that be the case here, or how do you determine what meets the benchmark of offensive?
Well, that's the difficult thing to do. There's no way to list off every single precise word or phrase that is quote-unquote offensive. So each situation is unique, but there are things that we will not tolerate if there is phrases or words about hate or just being vulgar, using swear words. There are things that are just not acceptable. But it's hard to give you an exact list of this word, this word, this word are inappropriate. So it really is treated on an individual basis as we're confronted with them.
Gotcha. And by the way, the other side of the spectrum, polar opposite of displaying skin, would be, some people would suggest that a female Muslim student wearing the burqa or the niqab, many people consider that misogynistic, that this is a symbol of radical Islam. Would that fall under the bailiwick of offensive clothing according to the Toronto District School Board?
We have religious accommodations in the Toronto District School Board, so something like that in general would be permitted in our schools. If you're wearing a mask, for example, or a hoodie where that is blocking your face, we don't like that. But in general, if there's religious accommodations, and something like that would be absolutely permitted in the Toronto District School Board.
All right. Well, Ryan, I want to thank you so much for coming on camera and explaining. I got to be honest, I don't like the idea of the hats especially not being enforced. We are celebrating D-Day. We can't even imagine the sacrifice that so many young Canadians made, including the ultimate sacrifice of death to preserve our freedoms. I don't think it's too much to ask for someone to remove their cap. I think it's a very simple act to show respect. So we're going to have to differ on there. And as for school in general, well, folks, to paraphrase the old GM tagline for Oldsmobile, not your father's Oldsmobile, that's for sure, at the Toronto District School Board schools. Certainly not like the TDSB schools that I attended as a youngster, but I guess that's what happens. In the name of progress, allegedly, life moves on. For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, did you enjoy that segment? Well, please like and subscribe to the Rebel.media.